Good day, everyone. Here we have a NCB-240/130H by Navien. It's a nice unit. These run on propane or natural gas. Today we're going to be replacing the three-way valve. The three-way valve is the valve that switches between domestic hot water and heat. It's a common part to go. For years it's kind of been well known that those go. This is a newer unit, so it has a slightly different design than some of the older ones. Now it's a cartridge style and it's a little bit easier to replace. It's basically a piston type valve. It's solenoid actuated. So we're going to be replacing that today. And so stay tuned. The first thing you wanted to go ahead and do is make sure that your unit is off. This is currently on, so what I'm going to do is power it off here. And then you need to make sure to cut the power to it also. So here mine's wired into the switch, so I'm going to cut the power. Some of them are plugged in with this black cord, but you need to make sure you cut the power. You might have one of those red switches on your wall in the basement or in the staircase. You could kill that, and that should kill the power to your unit as well. If not, you're going to have to flip off the circuit breaker, because it's very important to cut the power to the unit before you start working on it. The next step on your Navien NCB-240 is going to be to remove the front cover here. You have 4 of these latches, so they're a little hard to get off, but you've got 2 on top and 2 on the bottom. I like to undo the bottom ones first, because then the top ones keep this cover from falling off, because it can fall off. So I've got them all unlatched. I'm trying to do this with one hand, but you basically just pull the cover away. It comes off clearly. Just watch the wires on your control board there, and put the cover aside. I'll let this cool off while I go get some tools together. Now, before we get into the actual repair, let's talk really quickly about the symptoms of a bad three-way valve and why you would be replacing one in the first place. Usually what will happen is you'll either have hot water and no heat, or heat and no hot water, or it could actually get stuck halfway open, halfway between the 2 settings, and cause other issues. But basically what the three-way valve does is it takes the hot water coming off the heat exchanger and either sends it to the flat plate heat exchanger to make domestic hot water, or it sends it out to your system, to your circulator pumps, to your zone valves to make heat for your house. In my case, the unit was actually not making heat. So we have, you've got your return pipe here. You've got your pipe going out to the system here, and even with everything running, we weren't getting any heat at all, and these pipes were cold. The unit would throttle up, turn on. You could hear the onboard Navien circulator pump in the cabinet running, and either one of these Taco zone pumps would be running, but there's no circulation because I believe that this three-way valve is blocking the flow. The tools we're going to need here, pretty simple. I would wear some gloves since there's some antifreeze in the system. I've got a couple different sizes of needle nose pliers. I got a flathead screwdriver just in case it's easier to pop the clip off with that. A couple different sizes of Phillips head screwdrivers, and then some old washing machine hoses that we're going to use here to drain the system. So we'll get to that in a minute. So talking of draining the system, there's about a gallon or so of water in here, usually with antifreeze in it. And what we need to do is drain that down. Otherwise, when we pull the three-way valve out, it's going to create quite a flood there. So what we can do here is use these isolation valves. Now, not all units will have these. Luckily, this unit does. This is a Navien setup. That's an optional setup, so some may not be piped this way, but luckily they do have these isolation valves, and you shut that off, and that cuts it off from the system. This one has the same type of setup. And you just shut those off, and now we're basically disconnected from your heating system, your hot water baseboard, or maybe it goes to an air handler. And then the next thing we want to do is take these caps off. And this is how we'll actually drain the system. And we'll hook up our garden hoses or washing machine hoses there. Okay, and I would let this cool off before you attempt to do this, which is why I've had it shut off for a while, because that's going to be pretty hot water coming out of there. Okay, so we have our drain hoses set up here. We've got our valves isolated. So what I'm going to do is just open these up, and we're going to start draining the water with our antifreeze in it. I'm just opening up slowly, and we'll give it about 5 to 10 minutes to drain. You can see this does have antifreeze in it. And you can hear the system. You can hear our high vent up there. So let's let these drain. And while we're doing that, we're going to start taking apart this control panel here. All right, so now to get to our three-way valve, it's behind this panel. Now it looks like Navien has considered this repair and made a separate panel here that has 1, 2, 3, 4 screws here. So what we could do is take this panel off and just pull it to the side. Unfortunately, it has a bunch of wires. So I think instead of wrestling with all the wires, we're going to disconnect them. So we have to be very careful with this. But there's a small white tab up here that you squeeze, and then you can get that connector off. I'm going to carefully just tuck it to the side on this other panel, and again, make sure your power is off. You don't want to short anything out here. So this orange connector, I'm just going to tuck it over here, and then we have these 2 down here. Now these are numbered. They're not both the same. One is con 1, one is con 2. So I've labeled one of them with the number 1. These are blade style connectors. You can just kind of rock those back and forth. Okay. So now we have these out of the way, and now we can go ahead and loosen these screws. I'm probably not going to mess with the high voltage. This is 110 volts. These go out to the circulator pumps. These are the relays to control zones. You've got your fuses there. So we are going to take these screws out. And I won't film the whole thing, so you kind of need 2 hands. All right, so we have all the screws out, and it's going to lift forwards and pulls off to the side like that. You got to actually pull it forward slightly, and these wires are not being 100% cooperative. So we'll tuck these back over here again and carefully pull this off to the side, and now we have pretty good access to our circulator. To our 3-way valve here. So I'm going to try to get some more of these wires out of the way, and then we'll take our 3-way valve out. Yeah, on this power switch on the inside of the cabinet, there's 2 more blade style connectors that are kind of interfering here. So what we're going to do is pull these blade style connectors off, and there's one looks like it has an inline fuse. That's the one on the outboard side here. So take pictures of all the wires as you disconnect them so that you know where they go back. Okay, so this one I'm just going to kind of feed out of the way here because we need to have a open work area. This other one we're just going to tuck inside the cabinet up here if we can. And now we can pull this away. We don't want to get it wet. And then next we have one connector for the three-way valve here. It's got the blue, red, and black wire. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that there. And if you look at it, a new one has the same exact connector. And probably before you swap this out, take a look at your brand new three-way valve and make sure it matches up. And if it does, good, we're ready to go. Let's take this valve out and replace it. Okay, so gone ahead and gotten this electrical panel out of the way. Took the connectors out of the way. I did remove a ground wire over here as well because that was kind of in the way. I'm sure that there's going to be some water coming out of here when I pull this three-way valve out, so I went in the recycling bin and got a little container and cut the bottom off of it. I put a few paper towels in the front and the back there to help us absorb any water that comes out. So the way this valve is held in here is basically a stainless steel clip, and you see it down there. That wire clip, that's what holds the valve in. So we're going to go ahead and use a pair of needle nose pliers, go down onto the clip, and try to pull up on it and get that thing out of here. Take it easy because some of this is plastic and stuff in here, so it comes up like that. I'm going to go ahead and just pull it out totally. So here you can see the clip, and it does have pointed ends to help you reinsert it later. So put that aside. And then we have our power connector disconnected. And what we're going to do here is we are going to gently wiggle it and try to get it out. Okay, so sometimes the three-way valve gets stuck inside the housing, and in my case I ended up just replacing the entire housing, which was not the easiest thing to do since there are two screws on the bottom of the cabinet here and you need a right angle screwdriver to access those. So I wouldn't recommend that unless you absolutely have to do it. These connectors were easy. There's just clips that hold them in. So this three-way valve was seized inside the housing, and I figured out how to get it out. Of course, you know, make sure that you've pulled this pin out first, obviously, and then what you're able to do when it's stuck is you can pull it out about 1/4 of an inch or a little more, and you could see an O-ring in here, but the rest of it, it's still jammed inside here. And you know, while it's still in the unit, the best thing you can do is go where you have these wider points. If you can see here, here, and up here, and same thing on the other side, where that basically that pin goes in. You can use that as a leverage point to go ahead and pop this out. So what I did is I pulled it out as far as I could, and it's still jammed in here. It's going to be hard to see because I need two hands to do this. So what you do is get a large flat blade screwdriver and pull it out as far as you can. You want to get your screwdriver blade basically on the ridge that has that first O-ring on it. And then once you have it there, is just twist it, and you might need to go around to a second one. And this is going to be a little hard in the unit, but this is the only way to pop it out. So use a twisting action, and then eventually you should be able to get your three-way valve out of there. And this is a smooth bore in here, so there's really nothing holding it up. I think just the constant heating and the heating cycles kind of gets it stuck. I mean, it's very tight in there, even if I just put it back in there. So this one was bad. It was stuck on domestic hot water, no heat flow at all. I think that this little plunger in here is seized up. So that's the way to get it unstuck, is to pry it out with a screwdriver. And otherwise, it should pull out, pop the new cartridge in, put the pin in, and refill your system, and your job should be done. Good luck.